Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, join the Discord and follow me on Twitter. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, the opposite of what we did in yesterday's video, which is what an electoral landslide looks like for Donald Trump, today we're going to be doing what an electoral landslide looks like for Joe Biden. So as you can see here, we have the electoral map. Yesterday, I did the map for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden if Donald Trump wins with an electoral landslide, and he didn't actually get too many more electoral votes. He got like 320 something, winning the states of Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Nevada, and almost winning the states of Colorado and New Mexico. So we were being pretty generous to him there. So I'm going to be pretty generous to Joe Biden here as well. So we'll first start out by doing the safe Republican states, and that's going to be Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Dakota, all Nebraska except for the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, as well as South Carolina would probably be safe. It went to Donald Trump by just over 14 in 2016. I'd probably win it by around 10 to 11 in this scenario, as well as the state of Utah. So that puts Donald Trump at 125 safe electoral votes. And then for Joe Biden, he'd win California, Oregon, Washington, as well as Colorado, New Mexico, Hawaii. Colorado went by 5 to Hillary Clinton. It's a trending blue state. New Mexico went by 8 to Hillary Clinton. Some of the Gary Johnson voters could come to Joe Biden, as well as Illinois, New York, Vermont, Maine's 1st District, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C. So that's 100 and actually Virginia too. So that's 210 safe electoral votes for Joe Biden. I do believe that Virginia is a state that can actually go by safe margin. They do love establishment Democrats. Joe Biden is one of those people. He's a better candidate than Hillary Clinton was. And although Tim Kaine's not on the ticket, I don't really think Tim Kaine made too much of a difference. But those suburban counties, those Fairfax counties, are making a huge difference, which is why I believe if it's a good scenario for him, he could win it by a safe margin. So again, Joe Biden's at 210 safe electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 125 safe electoral votes. For the likely states here, I do believe that Maine's 2nd District would be by a likely margin, and then Maine at large would be by a likely margin as well. I just believe that Maine's 1st District will go by so much to the Democratic column that it could make the margin up to a likely margin, so just over 5 points maybe, whereas Maine's 2nd District would go by a likely margin, which is slightly a bit less than what it was in 2016. And that's actually all the likely margin states that we have here. Donald Trump is at 126 electoral votes. Joe Biden is at 212 electoral votes. Now, for the lean margin states here, I do believe that first Nevada would be a lean margin state. This would really be very close to being a likely margin state, probably by around almost 5 percentage points. If you look at 2016, Hillary won it by 2.5 or something like that. I do believe that Joe Biden will be able to improve on his margins, but the fact that he isn't doing too well with Latinos could hurt him in the state of Nevada, which is why I'm not going to put in the likely margin just yet. But it would be just on the cusp of a lean margin, just on the cusp of a likely margin, but going into the lean margin. Also, the state of Arizona, I actually believe, would be a lean and Democratic. You see Mark Kelly here, who's probably one of the best Democratic pickups in terms of who they've recruited to run a campaign, and he's really going to help Joe Biden do well in the state of Arizona because he's doing so well, and maybe minuscule will help him. Also, the state is trending blue. The suburban counties are trending blue. Joe Biden's a good candidate for the state. He could probably win it by around just over 2 points if he's having a good night here. The next state is going to be a big state for the Republican column, 38 electoral votes. That is the state of Texas. I do believe in this scenario will go by around 4 to 5 percentage points. If you look at 2016, it went by around 9 percentage points. I've been predicting for a while it will go for around 7, but now I'm saying it maybe go around 5 to 6. But in this scenario, probably Joe Biden could lose it by around 4 to 5, and that would be a good result for him, especially helping in the popular vote too, because this is the 2nd biggest state here. The next lead margin states, I do believe, will be Iowa and Ohio here. These are 2 states that trended heavily red in 2016 as opposed to 2012. You look at Iowa, went to Obama by 6 in 2012. Hillary lost it by around 8 in 2016. Same thing, a similar story with Ohio. Obama won it by about 3. Trump won it by about 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. And so I do believe these states would be closer, but again, they'd still be going to Donald Trump in this scenario in all likelihood. The next state would be the state of Minnesota. Minnesota is a state that you can kind of say I said this yesterday, but it's the one that got away from Donald Trump. He lost it by 1.5 percentage points here. And I do believe that in this scenario, he'd be able to win it by around, 3 to 4 percentage points. Obviously, you have everything going on right now. Might energize Republicans, might also increase black turnout, though. That's another thing that you could see happening, especially in the urban areas, people that are upset with what is going on here. So I'm going to put that in the lean margin, but again, that's not going to have too much of a difference. That's just talking about something that's going on right now. The next state I do believe would be a lean margin is the state of Michigan here. Michigan is a state that barely went to Donald Trump by like 11,000 votes, by 0.2 percentage points here. It's a state that he barely won. I don't think he'll win it. Even if he's doing very well, it's still a state that he could easily lose. And so I'm going to put it in the lean margin, probably around 2 to 3 points, honestly. I do believe that Joe Biden could do that well in the state of Michigan, along with the state of Pennsylvania. He's actually doing better. Of all the Rust Belt states, he's doing best in Pennsylvania, including Illinois, obviously. But he's doing best in Pennsylvania. He's around 6.5 up in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is Pennsylvania's a state that if he doesn't win, he's probably not going to win Joe Biden unless he wins Florida and Michigan. But I don't believe, Florida is a state, it could really go either way. But Pennsylvania is really a state that he wants to win. And right now he's doing pretty well, and I could think that he can win this by up to 3 percentage points in this election. I do believe that he won't win by 6.5 percentage points, because then that'd be a likely margin, but I do believe that he can win by a pretty substantial margin by around 3 percentage points. Putting that into lean margin and already pushing Joe Biden up to 275 electoral votes here. And we haven't even gotten to the tilt margin states. The next lean margin state, the final lean margin state, will be the state of New Hampshire here. New Hampshire is, again, a state that barely went to Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I do believe that if Joe Biden's having a good night, despite the fact that he didn't do well here in the primary, he is going to have to bring over a lot of the whiter voters, which, he's not the best at, but he does have a, motivated base in terms of turning out to defeat Donald Trump. That's kind of, he may not have enthusiasm, but that's one of the things that he does have. And so I do believe in the state of New Hampshire, he'd probably win by around a lean margin, probably by around 2 to 3 percentage points, similar to a number of states, actually. And so now we can see after the lean margin states, Joe Biden's at 279 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 188 electoral votes. Getting to these final states here, I do believe, first off, with Nebraska's second district, actually, let's fix Nebraska large. But with Nebraska's second district, I do believe it would go by around a tilt margin to Donald Trump. This is a very suburban district, went to Donald Trump by 2 points. You do have Kara Eastman, the Bernie bro, running at the congressional level, which is not going to help Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, but you might have some ticket splitting, but you have people that vote for Don Bacon as well as Joe Biden. I do believe that there will be some of those voters, and it's a very suburban district, a district that's actually trended blue in 2016 as opposed to 2012, and so I do believe that this would go to Joe Biden in this scenario. The next one is actually the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a state that, it's a bit more red than Michigan and Pennsylvania here, and it's the state of those three that flipped in the Rust Belt, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania there. Wisconsin is the state that he won by the most, 0.9 percentage points. I do believe in this scenario, Joe Biden would have won it by around 1.5. But again, this is, it's a very weird state. It's a different state to some of those other Rust Belt states. But I do believe that Joe Biden would still be able to win it by a tilt margin. Pretty much regardless of how he wins it, it's going to be by a tilt margin. The next state here is going to be the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is actually a state, it's different from Georgia, which we'll talk about in a second, but North Carolina is a state that, again, does have a lot of suburbs. There is more room to improve for Donald Trump in some of these rural areas in the states, but these suburban areas are very strong here, and they can help Joe Biden. Donald Trump only won it by 3.5 percentage points, and you'd only need a 3.5% swing for Joe Biden to be able to win it. And the polls, he's been doing well, and I know it is early polls, but it does give us some insight that Joe Biden does have a path to victory in this state, and I do believe that in this scenario where he's winning by an electoral landslide, he would be able to win the state of North Carolina. The next state is the state of Georgia, which I actually do believe he'd be able to win in an electoral landslide. I made a video about this where, he only lost by 5.5. Hillary Clinton, she only lost by 5.5 in 2016. And Republicans really don't have much room to grow in any of these rural areas, but Democrats only have room to gain in these suburban areas. If you look at 2012 to 2016, Democrats didn't gain, they only gained a couple points in the urban areas, but in the suburban areas, they gained 20 points. And so if that trend continues, which it'll probably be by a slower pace, but you don't even need it to be by as quick of a pace for Joe Biden to be able to win the state of Georgia, which I do believe he'd be able to do in an electoral landslide. And then the final state here is the state of Florida. Florida is a state that has liked to go to incumbents. The last time it didn't was 1980 with Ronald Reagan. And And Florida's a state that's close to every election, and I do believe if Joe Biden's having a good night where he's winning all these other swing states, I do believe that he'd win Florida too. Florida's a very independent state from other swing states. You know, if Joe Biden's doing well in Wisconsin, he'll probably do well in Pennsylvania. If Joe Biden's doing well in Georgia, he'll probably do well in Arizona. If he's doing well in New Mexico, he'll probably do well in Colorado, but then it just keeps going on. But Florida's a bit more independent, but I do believe that Joe Biden would be able to turn in a lot more voters than Hillary Clinton did. Hillary Clinton spent a lot of money in the state, and there's a lot of other things. It's now Donald Trump's home state now. But I do believe that if Joe Biden is winning by this large of a margin, he'd be able to barely pull off the state of Florida here, and he'd be able to win it by, half a percentage point, 1 percentage point, something like that. But yeah, this is the electoral map here. 350 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 188 electoral votes for Donald Trump. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel as always. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord, both linked down in the description. So thank you all for watching, guys, and I will see you guys later.